Nice. All right. Let's do the finest NGC corner, and then we can, if we have time at the end, we can take some more questions. Let me just set this up. So as you may recall from last time, I mentioned that the list of finest NGC objects compiled and put in the Observer's Handbook by Alan Dyer and the folks that make the handbook is heavily weighted towards the springtime objects, just because there's so many cool galaxies to see during springtime. And as a result of that extra long set of objects, then it means we're going to have to, cover a bigger number than we have been typically doing with the other times of the year. And because they're all relatively dim objects, it's not really possible to time it against the moon the way we typically did when we had, open star clusters and other objects. So I'm just basically going to take the finest NGC objects for spring, start with the most westerly ones, and then every session we do kind of march further and further to the east as they sort of come to center stage in the sky. The other twist on that, though, is that you'll notice that when you go out of an evening, the objects that are quite northerly in declination, so the ones that are kind of up near Ursa Major, that sort of thing, they're already very high in the sky right after dusk, whereas some of the other objects that are more southerly, they need their time to cross the meridian and culminate at a higher elevation, which is when you really want to see them. So I've actually been kind of ordering these by my suggested kind of order of approach on an evening, starting with the most northerly one and then sort of waiting for the more southerly declination ones to culminate. So here's the set we've got for this week. And again, we're not saying that this is the only week to see them. We're just sort of suggesting, this is the next batch to take a look at. The sky is going to get dark around 9:30 local time these days. So if you're out there ready to go at say 9:30 to 10:30, 11-ish, you'll have ideal conditions to be picking these ones up. So first up, we've got NGC 3344 up here above the back of Leo the Lion. Let me just do the north up again. This is the Sliced Onion Galaxy. And again, it's one of these really pretty, gorgeous, but relatively faint face-on spiral galaxy. It's visible in any size of a good telescope in a dark sky. It's got a stubby bar. You can't really see. There you go. I can see the stubby bar here when I zoom in a little bit. It's got kind of a stubby bar. It's got a bit of a ring around the middle of it. And then it's got these nicely spaced arms that wrap around. And those arms have nice little knots of H2 star-forming regions that you might be able to pick up if you've got a good-sized telescope in really, really dark skies. This one was discovered by William Herschel on April 6, 1785, so just a couple of days ago, last week. It's located actually in Leo Minor. So there's Leo Minor sitting above Leo, but it's kind of makes a triangle above and between Zosma and Algeba. So that's a great way to kind of get your finder scope in roughly the right spot. Use a low power eyepiece and just aim that. I had a line from the nebula through Zosma. So if you kind of do this, there's another way of doing it. So make a line through these two stars and almost double that. And that points right in the right direction. So the combination of that kind of vector plus the triangle should get you in the neighborhood that you need. There actually is kind of a triangle of medium bright stars here. I don't know if you can see them, 40 and 41 Leo Minoris, and then 54 Leonis sitting here. But if you can see these in your binoculars, then you could also just aim your finder midway between 40 and 41 and pick it up that way. Use averted vision, try different magnifications because, it seems that you can see different aspects of a galaxy by working it at different magnifications. You want to see the characteristics of its core, of its spiral arms. It's got some interesting field stars superimposed on it, so you can check those out as well. This one's about 20 million light years away. All right, next up, we've got the Hamburger Galaxy, which is part of the Leo triplet, NGC 3628. So this one is relatively easy to find. If you've looked at the Leo triplet before, which is Messier 65 and 66 and another galaxy, NGC 3628 is the other galaxy. And so if you know where to find the Leo triplet, you're already good to go. What you can do is reference Nebula and Churton and kind of get yourself in that neighborhood. It's only really, I think it's about, yeah, it's about 2 degrees below Churton or south of Churton if you aim your finder that way. This is a large kind of edge-on spiral galaxy. I'm just going to turn off the labels here so you can see it a little bit better. It's got a bisecting dust lane, which is sort of the meat of the hamburger, if you think of it that way. It's actually not as easy to see as the other 2 spirals, the 2 Messier spirals with it. But a medium aperture telescope or one a bit larger will show it nicely under the dark skies. Discovered by William Herschel on April 8th of 1784. Don't over magnify it too much. So try checking it out with a bit of a lower magnification first. Use that averted vision again. You want to note the field stars around it. You want to tease out the interesting shape of the halo because it's not your normal shape to a galaxy. And see how it looks compared to the dust lane, you know, how the center of the galaxy is distributed around the dust. And do you think you see the core? That's another question that you could raise. It's about 25 million light years away. Up next, we've got MGC 3344. Whoop, that's the one we already been. Yeah, 3384. Sorry, 3384. Here we go. So this one is kind of conveniently located just below and between the midpoint of Churton and Regulus, underneath the stomach of the line. This is a relatively bright lenticular galaxy. It's in the same high power magnification field with Messier 105 and NGC 3389. So it's kind of another triplet in Leo. And in fact, if you zoom out a little bit, there's also M95 and M96. So this whole group will actually fit together at low power in a telescope field of view. Now, the 3 Messier galaxies, the 105, 96, and 95, they're a bit brighter. So, but once you see those, then you need to use your skills to look a little bit to the northeast for the other galaxy as well. So, averted vision will help again. Again, you want to magnify it as conditions permit. You want to note the characteristics of the core, the shape, the orientation. And if you've got a bigger aperture telescope, you can start to see how far you can sort of extend the halo around it. This one's about 26 million light years away. Let's see what's next. Next up, we've got NGC 3607, which is up here in the hindquarters of the Lion. And again, if you've got your triangle of Nebula, Zosma, and Churton figured out, then it's relatively easy to aim your finder just a little distance to the east of and a little bit above the midpoint between Churton and Zosma. There's no stellarium image for this one, so I'll bring up the alternate view here. So this is a lenticular, possibly an elliptical galaxy. It shares the eyepiece with some other galaxies in the neighborhood. Leo's full of galaxies, as the whole region is. There we go. I'll bring up some numbers for you here. This should be visible in a 4-inch or larger aperture telescope, discovered by William Herschel back on March 14th of 1784. It's located about half a degree east of that line joining Zosma and Churton. And you can search with lower power and then zoom in as needed. Use averted vision. You want to note its shape, its companion galaxies, whether you can make those out, and note any field stars that might make little patterns, like there's a neat little asterism right beside it. This galaxy, interestingly, is known to have globular clusters, which have been imaged. So that's kind of cool. It's about 70 million light years away, which is a long distance. All right, now we've got NGC 3521 heading down. So I call this part of Leo the lion's den, because in binoculars, you can kind of make out these medium bright stars in a big sort of circle, and it's down amongst those or inside the, just inside the den of the lion. And this one is a real showpiece. It's called the Bubble Galaxy. Just zoom in a little bit. So it's really pretty. It's kind of reminiscent of the lion's tongue 2903 that we talked about last time. It's a relatively bright and large, slightly barred spiral galaxy. It's highly inclined, which improves its brightness, making it bright enough for large binoculars and any size of a telescope. And again, it's inherently brighter than lots of the Messier objects. Discovered by William Herschel on February 22nd of 1784. It was his number 13 in his class 1 objects. And as I said, it's in that ring of 5th magnitude stars. So if you can sort of pick up, P4, P5, P2, P1, and 55 Leonis, and also especially P3, then all you need to do is aim your telescope a little bit to the east of those. Let me just bring up the field of view, and I'm just going to drop the eyepiece. Oops, do that one more time. Just bring that 26 millimeter eyepiece. So you can see that P3 Leonis, which is magnitude 6, will share the field of view with the galaxy. Another way you could search for it, if you can't see those, is I noted that I star hopped from Sigma Leonis, which is up here. I think that's Sigma Leonis here. I just found this star, which is bright enough to see at magnitude 4. And you could also aim your finder's scope midway between D Leo and Phi Leo. Let's see if those come in here. But yeah, that'll get yourself in the neighborhood. You want to note the shape and the orientation of the galaxy. You want to try more magnification to tease out details, especially if you have a bigger telescope. Notice that it's got some dark dust lanes in here, which will affect the overall shape you see in the eyepiece. And so check that out. Different estimates for its distance, maybe 30 to 50 million light years away. I saw different numbers there for that. Now, the last 3 I'm going to cover are best looked at later in the evening when they culminate, when they're higher, because they're a bit more westerly. So I'm actually going to wind the time forward to about 10 o'clock here. Let's get them a little bit higher. So first up, I've got NGC 4516 or 4517, which is way over here in Virgo. Let's bring this up here. Again, no picture in Stellarium. I'll just bring it up. This is a relatively faint edge-on spiral galaxy. It's quite lengthy, though. It's contaminated by a prominent field star, and that can kind of throw off, brightness estimates for it. Discovered by William Herschel back in February 22nd of 1784. But this one you're going to need maybe a 6-inch telescope or larger to see it well. It's located about 1 degree above. Let's see, let me get this out. There we go. About 1 degree above the midpoint of the line connecting the double star Porrima to Xania. So that's a great sort of place to aim your finder scope. And I star hopped from Porrima, and I noticed that there was a neat little kind of asterism here that kind of confirmed for me where I was. So sort of a cross shape, kind of a Cygnus little shape, mini Cygnus shaped asterism, Charles, on the way to that galaxy. There's also a galaxy NGC 4541 that you might see on your way. So you want to use averted vision, look for its shape and orientation. That field star I mentioned, there we go. It's about 40 million light years away. There's also this other faint smudge of a NGC 4517 above it. So if you've got a dark sky and a big telescope, try to get a 2-for-1 when you're looking at that one. All right, backing out a little bit. Next up, we've got the antenna or rat tail galaxies. Those are down here in Corvus. So let me just bring these up here. This is also known as Caldwell 60 for those British list fans. This one is cool. It's a little bit hard to see though, because it's quite low in the sky for Canadians. This is a spectacular pair of interacting or colliding galaxies discovered by William Herschel back on February 7th of 1785. It's actually been given 2 Caldwell numbers since there's 2 galaxies in the grouping. They're readily seen in smaller telescopes under dark skies at lower latitudes, not necessarily from Canada. From here, you're going to need a 4-inch or 6-inch or bigger telescope to see it because they don't culminate very high in the sky for us. They're close to the spot where you can double the line from Algorab through Gienah, double that line, and they'll be close to that spot. And the 5th magnitude star, 31 CRT or crater eye, I'm not sure the Latin for that, is just below it, just south of it, 0.8 degrees south of it. So again, you want to use your averted vision. Try to see the shape they make. You'll need a big telescope and good conditions to see the rat tails, the antennas, but you might be able to pick those up. I think the northerly one is a bit brighter than the southerly. You're going to note the field stars as a kind of a triangle of field stars here. And just again, experiment with different magnifications to see what you can tease out. They're about 73 million light years away. And last up, we've got NGC 4361, which is over here. In the upper half, this is sort of central to the upper half of Corvus. This is an outstanding planetary nebula. It's actually larger and brighter than the Ring Nebula is. And it would be more popular if it weren't so southerly in declination, because it doesn't get very high for us in Canada. It was discovered by William Herschel on February 7th of 1785. It was number 65 in his class 1. And as I said, it forms an equilateral triangle kind of below Algorab or south of Algorab and Gienah, so you can pick it up. You could relatively easily aim your finder at that spot. I actually noted kind of a Big Dipper shape, or kind of a Dipper-ish shape, maybe Pleiades shaped asterism just below it, as confirmation while you're kind of hunting. Because it's a planetary nebula, you can pop in an oxygen 3 filter or a UHC filter and brighten it up with respect to the rest of the stars. So that'll help you to zoom in on which one it is. And to see its shape, you want to use nice and high magnification and start teasing out, the shape of it, but maybe some structure if you've got a bigger telescope. Again, see if you can see the central star, the white dwarf star in the center. And it's about 3,900 light years away. And that's the list for this time.